Welcome to Chris and Carlette Live, a podcast about life, love, and overcoming obstacles. Each week, we discuss the good, the bad, and the indifferent of life's interruptions. Now, here's your host, Chris and Carlette.
Keep believing, don't go stressing, keep it moving. God, we're resting, here to help you, here to bless you. With God on our side, CNC Live.
All right, we are live again. This is our new month.
Yes,
month
new
of
month.
February.
The first.
The first.
First day of the month.
Yes, this is the first day. This is Black History Month.
Yes, it is.
Yes, what do you think about that?
It's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
No,
to cut
just
you.
an appreciation for who we are, what we've accomplished,
Yes,
who we are as a people,
that's it.
and be proud and glad about it.
Yes, I see Marvin Johnson is trying to call me. But let's do our 2-minute recap. You ready?
Yeah, let's go
All
ahead.
right, let's.
This is a serious time that we're in, and if you didn't think about credit in the past, you're definitely thinking about it now, because your credit can clearly be used as your emergency fund.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So I think that it just
Explain
has
that
given you like a hard look, and this is reality. Everything on your reports, the numbers matter, verbiage matters, how old it is matters. So things that we've done over the past 24 months particularly is what is going to make a difference with your current scores. Each time you have your credit ran, so to speak, your scores refresh in that moment. Your scores are based on the probability of what's going on around you. The number one thing that I feel you should do is communicate with your creditors. That's number one. You have to communicate because, yes, we're in the middle of a pandemic, but unless you contact your creditors, they're not going to automatically just stop your payments. Even though this system is now in place to help people, if you don't get on the phone, they don't know if you're impacted or not. When you're in the process of building credit, then that means you have to go for cards that, I hate to say it, but basically that will accept you, right? Because you're trying to prove yourself. But once you get to that point, you have proven yourself to be worthy of, national bank cards, then yes, heck yeah, we're going to start getting rid of these hard money lender cards. You're going to start getting rid of those retail cards that I definitely don't agree with anyone having. But yeah, you can slowly get rid of those cards because you're adding more quality cards. You're adding cards with higher limits. So it's definitely going to help you in a much better way. Partnering with hard money lender cards, even if you're paying on time, you're keeping your balance low, your scores are going to be lower simply because you have a hard money lender on your report.
That was a great show.
Yes, it was. I want to commend and thank everyone who called in last week and engaged in the conversation. She gave out great wisdom, great things that we can do with our credit, with our finances. Robin Shobamihan.
Yeah, that.
Did I say it?
I think so.
I think so.
No, that.
Shobamihin.
Yes.
Shobamihin, yes. So listen, people have called. Some of them are going to utilize her services. So thank you all. Thank you all so much again. Engagement. And listen, you can go back and watch that episode on YouTube, Facebook. You can watch it and go back. We got 4 episodes. It's the 5th one. We got 4 on our belt, under our belt. You can go to our YouTube page, Chris and Carlette Live, or Facebook, Chris and Carlette Live, Instagram, CNC Live, to watch those episodes again. They were amazing, great information. Again, the first one was the inaugural. The second was Marriage and COVID with Gerald and Tammy Hatton. Then we had our third week was with, oh God, I just went blank. Grant, Mr. Grant.
Yes, Mr. Grant.
Mr. Grant. He talked about financial literacy, wealth management, and entrepreneurship. And then, of course, we have Robin Shobamihin on credit and COVID.
Hey, we got to take care of some business right quick.
Okay, let's do it.
We have to
Yes.
There's a person that's dear to our heart that
Yes.
we have
And-
to go ahead. What?
No,
I hope she's watching because
Usually she jumps on YouTube.
okay, yeah, okay, but today is her birthday,
Yes,
and
it
that
is.
is Apostle Barbara J.
Yes.
McLean.
Yes.
Barbara J. So we're going to
Today.
start it off, and then we're going to
And we celebrate and say happy birthday to all February birthdays.
yes, everybody.
Mhm.
You ready?
Are we gonna do it like
We're going to do it live.
really?
Yes,
Man.
yes. Okay, come on, let's do it.
Wow.
Come on.
I thought you usually count.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A happy birthday to you. A happy birthday to you. May you feel Jesus near every day of the year. A happy birthday to you. A happy birthday to you. And the best day you ever. Okay.
Well, we love her. It's her birthday.
Yes.
And she'll hear it sometime.
Yeah, she here sometime. We just tell
So-
her to press the replay button.
I just want to say this real quick. Last month we started off with New Year, New You. And here it is, guys. It's February. It's the beginning of the month. We did not forget. Keep those resolutions up. Keep going after your goal, your attainable, reachable goals, and stick to it. And keep the promise to yourself. And that's all I got to say about. I'm staying on that New Year, New You. I'm staying on top of it. But I do want to go in with this. The reason why we have Black History Month.
Yes.
Every February, this is an article that we got out that gave a good
It
explanation.
was on MSN.
Okay. And so every February, we celebrate a special holiday. And no, we are not talking about Valentine's Day. We're referring to the 28 or 29 days we dedicate to honoring Black History Month, our nation's way of showing respect and recognition for the hard work and sacrifices made by African Americans. Black History Month shouldn't be treated as though it is somehow separate from our collective American history or somehow just boiled down to a compilation of greatest hits from the March on Washington or from some other sports heroes. President Barack Obama said in his 2016 speech, "It's about the lived, shared experience of all African Americans, high and low, famous and obscure, and how those experiences have shaped and challenged and ultimately strengthened America. It's about taking an unvarnished look at the past so we can create a better future. It's a reminder of where we are as a country, have been so that we know where we need to go. Despite a tragic American history that saw Black people bought and sold into slavery, a continuing fight against everyday racism, and urgent issues like police brutality, we've remained strong. Black Americans confront a layered, painful past while making countless cultural contributions. We've been responsible for classic books, beauty brands such as Madam C.J. Walker, creative small businesses, films, and inventions we can't imagine life without. And we're still completing countless impressive firsts. But out of all the calendar pages, why is Black History Month in February, such as also known as the month of love? And who started this tradition? It all started with a man named Carter G. Woodson. Harvard-educated historian Carter G. Woodson is credited with creating Black History Month. According to Daryl Michael Scott, a professor at Howard University, Woodson got the idea in 1915 after attending a celebration in Illinois for the 50th anniversary of the 13th Amendment, which under Abraham Lincoln's presidency abolished slavery in 1863 in the Confederate states that succeeded from the U.S. It wasn't until 2 years later, on June 19, 1865, that all people held as property in the U.S. were officially free, which is why we celebrate Juneteenth. The festivities honoring the proclamation lasted for 3 weeks, with various exhibits depicting events in African American culture. In 1915, after seeing this display, Woodson decided to form what is now called the Association for the Study of Afro-American Life and History. in order to encourage the study of the accomplishments made by Black Americans.
That's powerful, baby.
Well, here's the thing, though. Through community outreach, he encouraged his fraternity, Omega Psi Phi, the purple and gold, to promote his work. In 1924, the fraternity responded by creating Negro Achievement Week.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much. It's so much more. However, I mean, did you want me to keep going?
No. Because we gonna get all this and
I know
some.
we are.
We gonna get all this
just so
and
much.
some. But if you want to read it, no. I'm saying if our guests want to read it, they can go to MSN to read it and to look at this great article. I'm not sure who it's by, but you know what? I'm so excited.
I'm very excited.
I'm so excited.
Please go get your children. Get your questions ready. Our dial-in number is 727-931-3274. And if you have an AT&T phone, it's 209-399-9093. And your access code is 727-931-3274. And if you see on the banner, those numbers are listed as well. But listen, get your questions ready. But no matter what, listen first. Listen, because more than likely he will answer your question. And we are talking about the one, the only, Mr.
Ramsey J. Jr. Let me read this bio just a little bit. Ramsey J. Jr. is the founding principal of Ramsey J. Jr. and Associates, a strategic consultancy specializing in diversity and inclusion programming, corporate communications, enterprise leadership development, institutional sales and market strategies, and executive talent management. Ramsey is one of the less than 75 certified challenger advisors in the world, by which he is authorized to deliver strategy and Salesforce effectiveness training for sales teams and executives via the challenger selling model. Ramsey is also a self-improvement author and of the best-selling book Empowering Dreams to Become Achievers, international subject matters keynote lecturer, and empowerment motivational speaker. Client engagement highlights include delivering strategic consultancy solutions for the United States Naval Surface Warfare Center, area management, Microsoft, and a host of others. And let's see what else. This is really key. He also made remarks at the White House, where former President Barack Obama hosted an event honoring the philanthropic legacy of Ray Charles. Prior to launching his strategic consultancy, Ramsey was a Wall Street trained global investment manager executive. We might need to talk to him about some strategies. Yes, and we need to make some money. But you know what? We're just you know what? I love his bio, but
I want to say this.
What's that?
We cannot. I'm a stickler for education. He earned his BS.
Oh yes.
In business administration from California State University, Fresno, where he was a 5-time all-conference Division I track and field athlete. Ramsey also earned an MBA from the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth College, where he was voted commencement speaker of his graduating class and plays a leadership role in the school's ongoing diversity and inclusion efforts.
So that means that he's very smart. He's very smart. Yes, and we're going to go ahead and bring him on now. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. We are excited to have Mr. Ramsey Ray Jr. on the show today.
Ramsey J. Jr.
Oh, Ramsey J. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here with you. You got it right. I hear your wife giving you a little coaching over there.
Right,
but it's all
right.
Good.
You know, I'm a little nervous, but
you know,
I can't wait to, engage. Yes. So yes, thank you for coming on the show again, and we appreciate your time and your effort to be a guest on our show.
Oh, I'm honored to be here, and thank you in advance for the opportunity to share your platform with your guest. It really is my honor and looking forward to the conversation and certainly interacting with your guests who are encouraged to call in and put questions in the chat. I look forward to their interaction as a part of this conversation today as well.
Thank you. So last week when we did like our little run through, I mean, it was a host of questions. We were just vibing, just asking all kind of things. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? But I want you to paint, when we talk about Black America, I want you to take us on a journey. I want you to take us from past to the present to the future. So meaning that, we already know about the MLKs, and we already know about Malcolm X and Rosa Parks and what they did fundamentally for our race, our culture. What would you say outside of that is key to Black America in the past?
Well, look, first and foremost, let me say thank you. And again, to you, Chris and Carlette. And let me just give you a tap of the hat for your platform that I understand you're creating, knowing that I believe this is episode number 5
yes, sir.
Of your program. And this is a labor of love that you've started on your own to share encouragement, wisdom, and knowledge with people who you believe are deserving of that. And I believe that if more of us were willing to take the initiative that you have and make this your business to empower other people, the world is a much better place. So before I say anything that I am blessed to be able to say today, I want to recognize you and your efforts. And most importantly, on behalf of the number of viewers who may not be able to say thank you for sharing your platform to empower others, thank you for doing that for those who won't get a chance to say it. And thank you for those who need to say it and maybe don't recognize that you don't have to do this, but you have chosen to do so. So before I say anything that I have to say, I believe we need to say that at the beginning. I like to say that gratitude is an expression and it is a critical emotion to human transformation. And gratitude means you say thank you before, Chris and Carlette and guest, you say thank you before you do what you're getting ready to do, not after you've done it and you're on your way to something else. So I'm saying thank you before we begin the conversation and not at the end when we are finished. So let me start with that and then allow you to pose your question again for me with proper introduction now to my gratitude stand for you.
I'm done. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
And we say you're welcome.
Yes.
And it's from the heart.
Yes.
Really.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not crying. I'm not about to do it.
So you threw me all off.
Right.
So I want to warmed up too. Just getting warmed up.
Right. Just getting warmed up. So again, I wanted to, I want you to paint a picture for us. And this picture is a broad brush. And I want you to start off in the past. And like I said, we know about the Malcolm X's, the MLKs, the Rosa Parks, and all of them have sacrificed for Black America.
And we do not downplay that.
Yes.
We do not.
And I want to know from your perspective, what have we left out in Black America? What can we tap onto to learn from our past?
Well, first of all, thank you for the question. It is one that we could probably do a whole month of discussion on and still wouldn't do it justice. But let me try to suggest a couple of prisms, if I may, Chris and Carlette, and for your guest. I think we need to be critically thoughtful about the introduction of the conversation about the state of Black America. America, we know, started roughly, and again, we can argue this till the cows come home, but the notion of the 1776 Declaration of Independence and the founding of the Union. But we need to be very thoughtful, and I want to be very clear here and make a couple of points for level setting our discussion. I believe we do ourselves and the world, quite frankly, a terrible disservice to suggest that the history or the conversation about Blacks or African Americans or folks who look like you and I, who, let's be clear, are not all American and they're not all African. I mean, we can go down that road. We won't in the interest of time. But I think the conversation of suggesting that the state of Black America begins in 1776 some derivative of the transatlantic slave trade is not only not true, it's actually discounting the rich history that has centuries of greatness, leadership, ingenuity to its credit. So if I may, Chris and Carlette, in preparing for this discussion today, and your guests who I know are looking for empowerment and education, let's be clear, just a couple of facts about Africa, where many of us are somehow descendants thereof, and the notion when we suggest anything with the word slave in front of it must have the word en in front of it, enslaved. So let's be clear and demystify a common conjecture that the notion of African Americans and slaves is not true. And so we need to be very thoughtful that that is not the brand identity for African Americans at large. Point number one. Point number two, let's be clear about where we start the conversation with respect to African Americans. Let me give you some facts, and I'm going to just give you some macro terms. I'm an academic, I'm financial, entrepreneur. Facts and data matter. Let me say that again. Facts and data matter. Opinions are great, emotions are fantastic, but data and facts matter. Setting the context. If I were to suggest to you a couple of things here, I got notes and I'm happy to give you these for your guests so they can consume them later, because the conversation should continue much after our 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock Eastern broadcast today. Mathematics, Egypt, Zaire, what is now Nigeria, the Yoruba tribe, a tribe of Nigeria. Mathematics, we're going back thousands of years to suggest to you that many high-level concepts of mathematics were first developed in Africa. We can go later into more depth. I'm giving you highlights to suggest the context of Black America today doesn't start with what happened here in 1776. That is not true, and it discounts our rich history going back further than that. Astronomy. How about the fact that several ancient African cultures birthed discoveries in astronomy, the foundations of which many of us need to record and understand? That is something to point. Number three, how about agricultural and engineering? Various African-American societies created now. How about if I told you Egyptians built the pyramids without things you would need to build your stupas today, without high-level equipment? They built pyramids that stand right now without any of that. Ingenuity, medical practices that have been adopted for in Africa. I could go into more depth for you. I just want to set the context from some historical context, history, and the creative ability and ingenuity of people who may suggest look like you and I and many other hues their history. And those modern day folks that we look that came from a much more concentrated must become popular narrative today more than ever, I suggest.
Wow. Let's take
and
a
that
Selah
means
moment.
that with us, but most of that is exactly what they are descendants of. And we need to be okay with allowing that narrative to, they don't have to seat or does not.
And so how do we as a people, as a Black culture, a race, how do we do the study and gather that information?
That good stuff. I love as self-study and constantly improve. How do you do that? Chris and Carlette, I'm not trying to get into your business, but I'm on your show, so I'm going to get into your business. You're at home. You share time, table, websites are we visit greatest laboratories for content or the qualities you have with him, but honest conversation. And we need to be very thoughtful at keeping that time sacred and be very thoughtful to make sure we keep that. How about this? The five to ask our young people, the what, where, who, why was it? The background around Black. W.E.B. Du Bois was the precursor to what is now Black History Month. Why was Frederick Douglass the first African-American invited to the White House by who? Abraham Lincoln. Going forward to understanding these whys and hows is how we help our young people develop those critical thinking skills, even if it's not in the textbook. Understanding how to reason, logic, and discern, you will then be able to say, you know what? Teacher, may I ask a question? Why? Teacher, how? Teacher, who started Black History Month? Why do we celebrate it in February? A simple question that then creates the cognitive ability for you to always be able to do one thing, and I'll land here and give it back to you. Don't accept information without applying the rubric that I put into my chat for you to think through. And I want to give you this because it's critical. And I want everybody to listen to this. The rubric means a principal practice for how you should think about receiving information. It's an acronym, meaning each letter stands for a word. If we adults, most importantly kids as well, we should adopt this philosophy as a lifestyle. The ACIPAA, one more time. When you are giving information or receiving, take it all in before you begin to absorb and then challenge. Why? The eloquence. Maybe some people say Ramsey J is a great speaker. He speaks so eloquent. That's great, but do not accept what I'm suggesting to be 100% true because it sounds good. We all can be terribly misinformed because the speaker said it and it must be true. So-and-so has a platform, so it must be true. So-and-so got 1,000 likes on social media, so it must be true. Absorb the content, but then be willing to say, wait a minute, let me challenge what Mr. J is talking about. Do the research and find out about math, astronomy, and medicine and see if I'm indeed giving you accurate information about it having roots in Africa. Absorb it and then challenge it. Once you challenge it, and then you're able to discern what is good to internalize, that's the I, absorb it, challenge it, and then internalize it, because now you're ready to actually put that into your system. But do not blindly put content into your system because it sounded good from someone that delivered it. Absorb it, challenge it, then you internalize it. The P, akaipa, is then you have to, and people don't always like this word, Chris and Carlette, but you have to then practice. Mm-hmm. Nobody becomes a master of any trait without, guess what? Practice. Malcolm Gladwell has a great book about good to great and the 10,000 hour rules. You've got to put time into practicing that which you've absorbed, challenged, internalized, and then practice it. The last two A's go together. Once you absorb it, once you challenge it, once you internalize it, once you begin to practice it, then you have to apply it accurately, the two A's. What does that mean, Chris and Carlette? If I suggest to you, there are 10 steps you have to take in order to earn an MBA from one of the top 10 business schools like I did, do not go and apply 8 of the 10 steps and expect to get the same result as someone who did 10 out of 10. So absorb, challenge, internalize, practice, apply accurately. Chris, a long answer to a critical question. If we can master that sort of rubric on how we process information and then teach our young people how to also do the same, whether we can change what the history book says tomorrow or not, we can help them change the way they process information in the book from the teacher, from the superior, because they have a framework that helps foster critical thinking.
Wow. We need a Selah moment.
Wow.
That's powerful. I want to touch on this though, since you
please.
What do you think, going to the past again, when oh man, I don't even know if I should touch on this. Okay, but I will. So from your perspective, when you read the Bible, do you read it from a Black perspective? Meaning that most of the characters, if not all of the characters in the Bible, were Black?
So I appreciate the question. And again, we can go into facts. First of all, I'm a believer. So I believe, right? So let me make that clear for everyone to understand that. So let me make that fact clear, number one. Number two, if you believe, then you would appreciate where I'm going to answer the question from a biblical and spiritual realm, but also let me just answer it from a fact-based, practical base. You understand where a number of the elements that are recorded in the Bible occurred, and you also will find there are references in the Bible that suggest the actual nomenclature, the hue, and the appearance of people in the Bible. And you also know where a lot of these Bible stories occurred, and you can very easily infer what the hue of one's skin and hair was like. You can read that for yourself. Also, just understanding if you were living in that part of the world at that part of time, the idea that you were going to be white like snow is highly unlikely. Okay, you just accept it for the fact base thereof. Now, to your question, here's what I do see. I see God the Father, and I see Jesus, and I will suggest to you, going back to the original creation, it says that man and woman were created in the image of God. This is in the Bible. This is in Genesis. Everybody knows that. And so when I read the Bible from a biblical perspective, but also from a practical perspective, I suggest that the Bible reads me better than any book I've ever read. It's the only book I've ever read that actually reads me the more I read it. Let me pause on that. The Bible is the only book I've ever read, as many times as I've read it, that it reads me more than I've read it. As many times as I read it, it still reads me back. Somebody needs to catch that.
Wow.
Point number 3, to answer your question, do I read it from a black perspective or a white perspective? Here's what I read it from, Chris, and I'm not dodging the question. I'm giving you honest answers today. I read it from a supernatural miracle perspective, that it is able to do what it said it could do then, and it does it right now because it's done it in my life. And to me, that is not white, that is not black, that is supernatural and miracle in nature, that I believe that the God that you serve, that I serve, is the able one to do all for all, because all were created in that image. And that is not a black image, and that is not a white image, and that is not dodging your question. That is giving you an honest answer to your question.
Wow. Baby, did you have a question? So I'm just like in awe.
No.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk about
all the phone calls we're about to get.
Right. Let's talk about, so going back to the past again, let's, and I'm not sure if a lot of people know about this. So, we talked about the Martin Luther King's, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, and yada, yada. There was a town in Oklahoma. Can you give us a little bit more insight about this town?
So I think you're referring to Greenwood.
Yes.
For those that don't know, Tulsa, Oklahoma, the city properly known, and recently celebrated a 100-year anniversary. It was affectionately known, and again, I encourage you, what was our rubric? Absorb, challenge, internalize, practice, apply accurately. So absorb what I'm sharing, challenge it, internalize it, practice it, apply accurately, do your research. But big picture, this was roughly 100 years ago at Tulsa, Oklahoma. Greenwood was the name of the town, and it was affectionately known, guest on the Chris and Carlette show, as Black Wall Street. Okay, I'm gonna say it again. It was affectionately known as Black Wall Street. It was a small town community and was registered as having, at that time, the greatest per capita or dense region of African Americans of significant means, wealth, and stature in that time. We also know, obviously, how that particular chapter ended with the Tulsa massacre. You should read up on that. Some accounts suggest it was the greatest massacre for race-based motives in American history. Again, we could argue, bottom line is, you don't attach massacre to something that was not clearly violent in nature. But what I will say about this particular story that you're asking me to highlight is a fact that we should take from then and apply now. I did some research on this. A great historian that helped kind of restore one of the museums and still stands today, where people can go to Tulsa and actually learn about it on site. And they asked this historian, how did African Americans, and this is again 40 years before Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement, so we're talking about 40 years before that. We're talking about roughly 60 years or so after the Emancipation Proclamation document being signed by then President Abraham Lincoln. So from a time marker perspective, and here's what we know. The woman said, and they asked her, well, how did African Americans at that time manage to build a township with that type of wealth created? Round numbers, you can fact check me here, but I think they had private airplanes, a private airport. The high schools taught Latin and physics. This was a very, very affluent and progressive town and community. And they said, how did they manage to do it? And I want to put this point out here for all of us to understand. They said the following: the reason and the way that they were able to build that township the way that they did is they, here it is, reached out their hand, literally, to their brother or sister to their left and to their right. And here's the point, Chris and Carlette and guest, they did not wait until they made it to bring someone along to make it. They brought people around forcefully. Chris, come on. Carlette, come on. We're going to learn how to do this together. And I'm not going to wait until I master it or I get mine and then come back and give you yours. I'm going to bring you while what? I am going my time as well. What did that do? It left an indelible footprint. I want to say that word again. It left an indelible footprint. That means it was incapable of being erased or eroded. The only way a people, a community, a town, a state can continue to progress is that while people who are leading the progression bring people along while they're progressing. If you wait until you quote unquote make it to come back and help someone else, the footsteps that you use to master your trajectory will be erased or eroded over time. We won't be able to follow in accurate order, which is one of the AKIPA principles. This is a lesson for all of us, for all people. It's especially a lesson for African Americans today. We need to be intentional about bringing one another along while we are still moving along. Those of us who are fortunate enough to have quote unquote made it, we need to be aggressive and intentional about downloading the entire blueprint. And here's where I will land. Leadership today is about making sure those who come after you can exceed your accomplishments. As great as your accomplishments may be, you should be proud that somebody coming after you can go further from you, because that's how what you started will be able to sustain generationally. And that is something we need to get very honest about doing. Multi-generational transference of knowledge, power, wisdom, and wealth. And you will not do that if you wait until you make it to bring somebody along with you. Tulsa provides a powerful template that it can be done, and it should continue to be done again.
Speaking of that, my dad growing up, he always said, you know what? I want you to be better than me.
I agree.
And I take the same principle. You know, I've made it so far, you know, but I want my kids, I want my son, my two sons and my daughter, I want them to be better than me, better than us. I mean, that's the only way you can continually have that perpetual improvement. You know, I don't know. That's a powerful statement.
It's very powerful. And what you said, you know, was too, going back and I'm gonna get back to what you just said. When you said we should take people along with us, what if you try that and they still don't want to go? They are content with their environment. They're just content. And, you know, what do you do? Because if you leave them alone or keep progressing, it's like, it's almost like leaving them in a sense, you know. And what do you do with that? What do you do with that?
I think first of all, I want to say thank you for the question, and we should have honest discourse here. Otherwise, we shouldn't have discourse at all. I'll give you a couple of frameworks and some personal thoughts to kind of frame some thinking around a very appropriate question. Carlette, I like to suggest there are two types of variables in the broader ecosystem that we all have to survive in. I argue there are controllable variables and there are uncontrollable variables. Now, I have a very unique definition of those two, so let me define those and then it'll help inform my answer to your question. I suggest a controllable variable is a variable or an outcome that you can influence now to get transformation now, or this time, this generation. An uncontrollable variable, I argue, is one that you cannot influence to change an outcome of a generation right now, i.e., some young people growing up in certain parts of town where certain things are not there. I would love to be able to go into every neighborhood and make sure it had every resource available tomorrow. I can't control that variable outcome right now. So I call that an uncontrollable variable, but it is one that we should continue to work on, and we should, and we will. But the controllable variable is, to your point, the reality that you have to be able to find a way to excel within the environment that you're in, and the controllable variables that you have at your disposal. I like to say it this way: maximizing that which you can control. Let me say it again. Not do okay with it, not kind of do all right with it, but maximizing the controllable variables that you do have influence over. I understand there's a number of them that you can't, and I understand that. But there are a number of them that you can, and there's a number of them that you can do more to maximize. And I'm happy to give you some principles around that. To answer your question, Carlette and Chris, you may not have flown in a while, but you recall when you do fly, I always like to remind you, you know what the flight attendant always tells you after they tell you about buckling the seatbelt and they tell you oxygen will fall down if there's a drop in cabin pressure? Carlette, whose oxygen mask do they tell you to put on first?
Yours.
Why do they say that, Carlette? You think they don't care about your son or daughter in the seat next to you? They're very clear. They tell you emphatically, put your mask on first and then assist another. Carlette, why do they tell you to put your mask on first? Is it because they don't care about the passenger that you're traveling with? No.
Oh, no, it's not that.
No. The reason they want you to put your mask on first, Carlette, because guess what? If you don't have your mask on and you fall victim to the smoke and the other issues, who can you assist if you go down? No one. So part of your question, and I empathize with this, here's what I would suggest, Carlette. Obviously, you want to bring others along with you, but you also have to be judicious to make sure that your mask is secure, i.e., so when you do go to bring that person along, you don't go down, and then guess what? No one goes up because you both went down. You encourage, you invite, and here's the last point I'll tell you. A lot of people will become motivated to follow you by the way you continue to lead with honor and integrity. And here's the point, Carlette, when they are not necessarily knowledgeable that you are being watched. The example that you lead when they aren't watching you is the example that will help inspire them to follow you, perhaps more than you telling them to come along with you. You do what you do with righteous integrity consistently and watch how people begin to emulate your model because they watched what you did versus you telling them what to do.
That's good.
Wow.
Because I thought about, you know, why people always say, oh, they made it out the hood. I'm getting you out of here. I'm getting you out of here. Instead of, let's all get out of here. We're going to get you out of here. And then it's like, you know, I thought when you were first speaking, for some reason, my mind went to the movie. I don't know if I can even say it. Can you say a movie name?
Yeah.
Menace to Society. When they were so ready to get them out of the neighborhood, and eventually only one got out. Only one. And it's like, that's the thing. Okay, who got out? Oh, they made it. They big. They gone. They da-da-da-da-da. And it's like this great divide. You know, for some reason, when you were talking about, but that was great. Encourage, invite, but live with righteous integrity. So they'll be watching you by example and get the instruction through your life. I get it.
Sometimes the best modeling you can do, Carlette, is by doing the right thing, even when you don't necessarily know people are watching, because that's when they really begin to study whether or not they want to follow you. It's easy to follow the guy with the microphone and on the Carlette and Chris show live, but how am I going about my task when I'm not on the show? That's the person you want to follow. And guess what? A lot of people who are cynical to follow are going to follow that person because they know that person isn't doing it for show. That person actually lives that truth. That's who they are. That's who they're going to be inspired to follow, especially if they've had false positive follows in their past, which is true for many of us if we're honest about our journeys.
Wow.
Okay.
I
got a lot more, but I want to respect you. I want to respect your conversation track. But my chamber is loaded for you today, so I'm ready to go.
I know. It's Monday.
It's funny, man.
Oh,
I
wow.
told
It's Monday.
you.
It's Black History Month. And, it's a great 2021, and I'm fired up, ready to go. So looking forward to wherever else you want to go. I do have some thoughts I want to make sure I deposit for your guest, but I'm honorable to the track that you want to go for on your platform at the same time.
No problem. No problem. I told you all that we were in for a treat today. And those people that aren't streaming live,
Watch,
Y'all gonna have to catch the stream, you know.
watch the
Yeah, or I
replay.
don't know how you can do it. Send it to somebody or
Right.
text somebody or forward
Yeah.
or something. But this
Share
is what
it.
we're doing. So let's get
Yes.
involved,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen.
Let's go a little deeper. So let's talk about present. So we had the Barack Obama era, our first black president.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, let me go. Speaking of which, I was in the conversation the other day, and it was at church, and they said Barack Obama and Kamala Harris are not truly African American. Their descendants were not of African descent. So to say that we've had our first black president, our African American president, our vice president is a false statement. I think I'm getting that right.
Wait, Barack, his daddy was from Kenya, right?
But he's not. He's because he wasn't from America.
Oh. No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, you want to address that, sir?
Well.
Do you understand?
I wasn't part of the conversation, but let me give you some thoughts to where I think that conversation was coming from. And again, you have to forgive me because I think part of what hopefully this conversation that I'm having today encourages all of us to do is to I use my rubric, so I don't just preach it, I practice it, right? So absorb, challenge, internalize, practice, apply accurately. And I think facts matter here. I think we all appreciate Barack Hussein Obama, right? There's the name, ladies and gentlemen. Kenya, right, and Hawaii. Right? These are the facts, right? We know this to be true, and we can do the same thing for our Vice President, Madam Harris, right? Understanding the lineage and genealogy of both of them, right? And here's what I would suggest. And if we're honest, Chris and Carlette, I don't know if you've done it. I haven't done it, but I've had good friends who have done it. If you do a DNA, a 23andMe test, and you were to actually find out what all is in you, Chris and Carlette, do you think you have something else in you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And some of us, if we're honest, you'd be surprised what else is in you. Right. So when we begin to suggest the qualifications, the merits thereof of somebody being exclusively all this and all that, if we actually look at the DNA genealogy, it's going to suggest that we're all a whole bunch of something. And I think we need to be honest about that. I think where I would be more interested if I would have been in the conversation with you and your colleague or peer from church is to understand the trajectory of success that allowed two people who at least resemble me to achieve arguably a success leadership journey that I would suggest we all would be beneficially enriched by learning and understanding. How did someone who appears like me accomplish something so extraordinary in the 21st century? I would be more willing to invest my debatable capital on that narrative than I would on the alternative idea of are they all this or all that, when the reality is they're a whole bunch of that. And guess what? So are you.
Right.
And here's what I would suggest. Remember, Barack Obama, President Obama, was soundly defeated in a state legislator bid there as a state senator in Illinois. Again, fact check this. Beat soundly by Bobby Rush. People don't want to remember the facts. He was beaten 60-30, something like that. It wasn't close. He was defeated soundly. Married to Michelle, First Lady Obama, 2 kids at the time, school debt from Harvard and Columbia and Princeton. And he had to figure out, what is this really going to be all about? Right? We should be asking the question, what was in the mental construct of Barack Hussein Obama before he became President Obama, that after a sound defeat at a local political statewide election gave him the mental resolve, the intestinal fortitude to not just run again, but to run again and ultimately run for the highest office in the land. I think we need to spend our time on that conversation and deconstructing that thought process, the skills, the knowledge, the networks, the relationships, and then go further to remember when he did run, he went to Iowa, which per capita is the whitest state in the union, and beat then the juggernaut Hillary Clinton. People don't remember this, but that's also true. Fact check that. Then went to New Hampshire after that and was beaten by Hillary, and all of a sudden normalcy was returned. And this man still managed to be steely in the fire and was able to be successful. Now, I'm not here to argue for his politics or against his politics, but I think when you see someone who achieves success at that level, given the setbacks that he encountered, we all can learn from that construct, because life is going to be most rewarding by how you manage the valleys, not how you celebrate at the summit.
Wow.
And I believe when we find people who have made it to the summit, we study how they navigated the valley, there is a lesson in life that applies to all of your listeners if you're willing to study their valley journey more than argue the pinnacle of their summit seat.
That's good.
Learn today, people. Learn
Right.
today. Learn.
So back to my original question I was trying to get to, but I can't time.
Stick to the question.
Stick to the question, right? So we've had President Obama, we've had George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. We had these other deaths, and then we had other things to happen, what I would call in our present, maybe in the past 5 plus or minus 5. Let's go back to 10 years and call that present. How has the present shaped our educational, shaped our economic, and shaped our racial and health disparities, especially during this pandemic?
Well, there's a lot in that one. Again, we could have a whole, maybe you have me back, I get a whole show on some of this stuff, because this is a very rich question. So let me try and do justice in at least answering the key elements of it that you've suggested. First of all, I appreciate you bringing up the reality that we're all living in, 2021, 2020. I would argue most of us who we go back and rewind our calendar in January of 2020, I don't think many of us forecasted to be living the reality that we did when the coronavirus, COVID-19, began to really fundamentally shift the way we operate. Carlette, back to my point about controllable and uncontrollable variables, the COVID-19 made a whole lot of us reconsider, well, what's controllable and what's uncontrollable? So that's its own story and narrative there. I also think in my thematic vision for the year that we're living now is one under the theme of supernatural unity. And I want to spend a minute to talk about that, because it also dovetails into your question. Supernatural unity suggests we have to remember, Carlette and Chris and guest, there are roughly 6,500 dialects and tongues that are spoken languages in the world today. And I would argue there are roughly 7 billion inhabitants of this place called Earth. And when the coronavirus hit, it was perhaps the only way you could get all of those languages and all of those people to stop. Let me pause and make sure you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
It is hard to suggest you can naturally make 7 billion people all stop doing something when you can't communicate with them all because they don't speak the same. But that virus for many months made us all say, stop, 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 Carlette, stop, Chris, stop, Ramsey, stop, East Coast, West Coast, North America, South America, Africa, China. I mean, stop. And everybody was forced to do that. Now, someone could argue that was a natural sort of thing. I would argue there's no way you can get 100 people do the same thing at one time naturally. Try it, let alone 7 billion. That's the supernatural prefix to the word supernatural, and then unity principle. It united us. Let me also suggest to you that the confluence of factors therefore mentioned, and then the timing of the unfortunate, tragic murder of George Floyd was such that we all had to not just see it, we had to see it again, talk about it. I saw it, you forwarded it, you talked about it, I talked about it, you saw it, you forwarded it. That was obviously amplified because of the supernatural pause that was in effect. Point number 3, I said this recently and I'm saying it again. I don't know, Chris and Carlette, I enjoy your show. I enjoy your platform. I enjoy you have a moment of humor and levity. And let me offer one here as I answer your question. I don't live too far from the Los Angeles International Airport. And I was driving down there with a good friend of mine shortly after the George Floyd murder and the resulting protest that gripped the America conscious and then certainly globally. And there were roughly 1,000 people marching down a major boulevard. And they were, I would argue, 95% of them were white. Here's what I'm trying to tell you. Chris and Carlette, this is a true story. They were looking at me, sitting in my comfortable car with my air conditioning on, looking at me, screaming out Black Lives Matter, looking at me kind of somewhat irritated because I wasn't out there marching with them. Let that resonate for a minute. When we have these portraits of civil rights and the marching and protesting, and we believe we know what those portraits look like, this was a real portrait in 2020. They were not looking like me, looking at me, wondering why I wasn't out there marching with them. This is a real portrait of what we saw, and you saw this all around the country. Mm-hmm. Fast forward now to where we are in 21, and to your question about the present, Chris, here's what I would suggest. If you think about, again, remember when I say our history doesn't begin in the 50s, it doesn't begin in 1776, it begins centuries before that. So let me put that marker back out there as I kind of come back to where we are now. And then I think I know where you're going about where we're going in the future. Here's what I would suggest. If you think about your parents, or maybe even your parents' parents, I want to make this very personal for you, Chris and Carlette. You would be able to answer this question for me. Your parents, when they were your age, or maybe let's make it more clear, your grandparents, when they were your age, did they have the ability to have a platform to talk about issues that they wanted to whoever they wanted to, however they wanted to, within reason? You would have to tell me the truth on that question. I don't think they would have had the opportunity, and you know why. Your guests know why. But you do. Point one. Point two, you know what else I can tell you right now, Chris and Carlette? And I know there's some disclaimers to what I'm going to say, so point well taken. But that said, I'll be honest and tell you, I have a lot of my family from the greater Georgia area on this call. I want to make sure I give them a hello. I love you guys. Thank you for being on today in the greater Atlanta, Macon, Perry, Lake Joy part of Georgia. I know you're broadcasting from Georgia today, and the South, if you will, the Jim Crow, the 13 states of that time, remembering the fact, I will tell you candidly, and I'm going to say God bless them, both of my grandparents, my grandmothers are passed away, but I will suggest to you that here I am, 3 generations, grandmother, mother, now me, grandmother, father, now me. I'm the 3rd generation. Went from a time that you would argue could not pursue higher education, could not pursue certain liberties and pursuits because of the Jim Crow oppressive era and laws of the South. This is a fact. We should be able to talk about it, not with an air of anger or hostility, just as a matter of fact and truth and principle. But here is the reality. The grandson of these grandparents of mine was the first African-American to be voted by his peers in a democratic process to be the speaker of the class of the 105th graduating class of the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth, which is one of the top 10 business schools in the world, an Ivy League institution. Wow. Now, I'm not here to brag about my accomplishments. What I'm here to suggest is that my opportunity set to pursue that type of credential was something that my grandparents could not have done at that time. So here I am 3 generations later. And by the way, my grandmother was in the audience the day that I gave that commencement speech. So she got to see the reality that she couldn't live, but through me, Chris and Carlette, and people at home, please hear my heart on this matter. She got to live that dream through me. And guess what? Whether you are the first, the middle, or the last, somebody's dream is able to be lived through you that they couldn't have even dreamed about a generation or 2 ago. Now, Chris, this does not suggest that I'm aloof to the challenges that may persist today, but I am not going to be on your platform and suggest a mindset of deficit thinking that suggests what I can't do, where I can't go, who I can't become, because I know that mindset 100 years ago was really truly governed by a constraint of a system that would not allow me to even foster my dream, let alone pursue it. So I have to be thoughtful about that so that my mindset is clear that when I get an opportunity to go to some of these educational institutions and work in some of the institutions that I have, that I maximize, here's my word, Carlette, maximize my opportunity so I can be part of that transference process to ensure those who won't have access unless through me can go further than me. And I'll land here, Chris. I'm going to say it on the record. I believe if I were to tell you, if you could have, let me get my math right here. There it is. If I could tell you, you could have access to 84% of something and its resources, its collateral, its opportunity, its potential upside, would you want that? Or would you rather just say, I rather only have 16% of something?
Give me
what would you say?
I want the 84.
So I appreciate you saying that, because here's where I want to really bring this full circle and have honest discussion with you and your guest. Because right now, African Americans are roughly 14 to 16% of the US population, depending on how you do your math and do the census. That means roughly 85% of the US population is not African American. And what I'm suggesting, part of the state of African Americans today is the opportunity to certainly galvanize a community, supporting one another, teaching one another, empowering one another. The Greenwood example of bringing somebody along with you. But let's be honest and clear. There is also tremendous opportunity to build bridges and alliances with people who may not look like you and I, but have the ability to be enrichment vehicles for you and I to deposit resources and assets to whatever community we say that we care about. And I believe my journey has been one that has been so fortunate that, Chris, today I can suggest a causality that I'm passionate about. And I love to use this one. I'm passionate about empowering young people. I'm passionate about empowering young people who have a dream, no matter what color they are. I'm really passionate about empowering young people who've never had anybody to tell them that they can dream, that they can become something. But you know what we need to do? We need to do more than telling young people that they can dream. We need to empower them to become achievers. That is why my first book is titled Empowering Dreamers to Become Achievers. Love having a dream, love a blueprint on how to achieve the dream. And I believe the only way that I can make good on helping as many people, young or old, rich or poor, black or white, Latino, gay, lesbian, Wall Street to the street. I talk to them all, international, from I've been to China, I've been to Canada, been all over Africa. Here's what I'm saying. The only way I believe I can truly help people realize their goals and dream is I want every resource that I'm fortunate to have access to be part of my arsenal. That means I don't want to just adopt a kid. I want to be able to command resources to adopt a classroom. I don't want to just adopt a classroom. I want to command resources to adopt a school. Wow. I don't want to just adopt a school. I want to adopt resources to adopt a school district. And that is what I believe the confluence and network of association and partnership will allow us to do in a way that you would never do if you only had access to 14% of the resources or people with the opportunity to help you transfer whatever it is you say you care about. Last point, when I went to business school, this is in my book. I'm not selling my book. I encourage you to get it if you want it, but get some resource that tells you how to become versus just what you have to do. No, a blueprint. How do you become the next? That's what my book talks about. But I talk about this in my book. The first club, Chris and Carlette, that I joined was the Asia Business Club.
I read that.
Now you can see me. You can see me, Chris and Carlette. I'm not Asian, right? I'm not Asian. But I joined the Asia Business Club. And people say, well, why did you join the Asia Business Club? Because if you understand economy at that time, where growth was happening in capital markets, finance and economy, China was the greatest growth engine in the capital markets, which are more interdependent now than ever before. It made good sense to build alliances, friendships, and relationships with a region of the world and people from that region of the world that would be influencers of major capital access and transferable assets that you could then use to transform something that you cared about. But if you do not have an intimate relationship with someone different than you, you cannot learn from them. You cannot garner resources from them. You cannot collaborate with them. And I believe one of the greatest gifts I've been given is the ability to speak multiple languages effectively that have nothing to do with dialect or tongue, but association by immersion with people who appear different than me on the surface. But when you immerse yourself in their community and invite them to do the same to you, you find out you have more in common than you find that you have that is not common. And I believe today, one of the greatest opportunities for all people, certainly African Americans, 14% of the population, is building alliances. That doesn't mean you're selling out or you're forgetting where you're coming from. That's actually not at all what you're doing. You're actually fully participating in the opportunity to fully empower that which you care about by every means necessary to make yourself be the best you can be. And guess what? If you can help me be a better me, and that then helps me be better for people I care about, you are my friend. And I will reciprocate the same generosity and friendship to you.
Wow. And
I think that is not just okay. I think it's the right thing and the only thing we should be doing more consistently right now.
I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And my question is, what are your recommendations? Because I know we have a mentor program, but as far as the other sororities and fraternities, what can we do as a Panhellenic council to help promote what you're just talking about?
I appreciate the question, and I'm your guests, I'm sure, know what you're talking about in the fraternity and the Divine Nine and the Coalition of Greek fraternities and sororities. First of all, I appreciate the question because I think it's a great one. I think, and here's what I would suggest. There are really 3 T's, and the Bible talks about them. I'm not going to preach, but you let me stay long enough.
Go ahead.
I'll preach for you, but I'm not going to do that. But the Bible does talk about time, talent, and treasure, right? The Bible does talk about that. And I want to just spend a moment on one of the other great assets and great gifts. And I would argue time, talent, and treasure are all extraordinarily valuable. But Chris, to your question and to your point, I believe purposeful mentorship, and I'm using each word critically, purposeful, not just mentoring to be mentored. I'm talking about purposeful mentorship is one of the greatest gifts that you can give. And most importantly, it is one of the greatest blessings that you can receive. Purposeful mentorship is what allows you to actually become that which you know you can, but don't know how to become. Purposeful mentorship, Chris, means when you have a mentoring program, as you may be discussing, that you are purposeful in devising and creating a curriculum that is designed to prepare the young people for the 21st century. That means to me 3 critical literacy pillars: critical thinking, which we talked about, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Something in those 3 complexes is a part of every element you have in your mentoring curriculum. Number 2, financial literacy. I know you had a guest on last week, and one talking about credit, one talking about banking. Financial literacy should be a core component of any mentoring program. Understanding the intergenerational nature of transferable of wealth is a principle that, look, don't leave it to school to teach it. You can teach that, and you can then master that. And then thirdly, digital literacy. Here we go. We know science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, the STEAM complex. I argue the digital literacy complement that's underwriting that. You can look at the data, again, absorb, challenge, internalize, practice, apply what I'm saying, but the data is very clear. Job growth over the last several years has come from the STEAM complex by almost a factor of 2 to 1. We also know that the wage associated with STEAM related career paths going forward will also be growing by a factor of almost 2 to 1 over 20 to 30 years. So if we're equipping young people to be functional, no, I'm talking about thriving. Surviving, no, I'm talking about thriving. Participating, no, I'm talking about leading. Borrowing, no, I'm talking about equity. I'm talking about being an owner, not a renter. If we're really talking about preparing young people for that, we have to be preparing them for an economy that says you need to have at least a literacy level of critical thinking, reading, writing, arithmetic, financial literacy, understanding economics, budgets, credit, debt, interest, and then digital literacy, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And if you design a mentoring curriculum that is intentional by design to foster those skills in all of your mentoring interactions. You are preparing a young person to not just survive. I want to repeat it again. You're preparing him or her to thrive. And I'm happy offline to share some resources because I'm part of an organization that is doing that, I think, decently, but I also am aware of others that are also doing it quite well. And I want to go back to your question. We should be sharing these models, these blueprints, these templates of information with each other, so we're not sitting trying to recreate something when someone may have it done well, and we can, guess what, use theirs to, guess what that's called, Chris? That's called bringing you along while I'm moving along.
Right.
I want to say something.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to go back now. When going through your information, you are a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, correct?
I'm a member of Sigma Pi Phi, and I am a member of the region of called Gamma Zeta Boule, and that is the regional boule of Sigma Pi Phi, which actually has its headquarter office in Atlanta, back where I think you are relatively close to.
Yes.
So I associate with that association as a part of my continued civic engagement.
Where did I get Alpha Phi Alpha from?
I'm not sure, man.
I thought we had to come. I thought I saw you in black and gold.
You may have seen me in black and gold, but I am not a card-carrying member of the distinguished fraternity.
Gotcha.
I want to give a brief shout out. I have to do this. I saw she was on Facebook, but I want to appreciate and acknowledge Karen Clark.
Yes.
Please.
I need to say, Karen, if I could blow you kisses, thank you so much. Karen and I work together. And it's just, man, this has really been an honor and a privilege, Karen. And I can't thank you the more for allowing Ramsey and Mr. Ray to share with us from his heart and to be a part of our vlog. And Karen, you're the best. I owe you dearly. Thank you so much. And I want to also admonish everyone that is viewing and that will be viewing to like, share, and comment on this. This is so powerful. We need this for our community. And then if you have any, let me first ask you how much time. I know we kind of allotted so much time. Are we good? Are we?
Okay, yes, I'm fine. I built some time in, so I have a buffer before I need to move on. So I have some time for you. Let me also just echo your comments and your compliments. Again, gratitude, that posture. To Karen A. Clark, a good friend of all of ours here. I want to say thank you also for Karen introducing us all to one another. And for those that don't know, someone you should all get to know, extraordinary banker, multicultural team leader at City National Bank in the Southern California area, but also just an extraordinary citizen, leader, community transformer, performer, a poet, and also mentors countless others, and someone that I think all of us are better for having in our lives. So let me also say thank you, Karen, for being part of what we just talked about, bringing someone along while you're bringing along. This is the result when people do that intentionally. Wow. Thank you for modeling that. I owe you, we all owe you a tremendous debt of gratitude.
Thank you. Yes. And I saw you, Marcus. Marcus is another CNB employee. Thank you, Marcus, for a shout out to Karen. Yes, thank you. I also, man, it's so much. We're gonna have to have a second. Shoot.
I'll come back, guys. Don't worry about that. So you go where you want. Let me give you one thing that I did want to make sure, because I know some people may have budgeted the time and they move on. I'm happy to stay on with you for a little bit, but I want to encourage people to listen to this because I've really been thinking about this, and I think it's important to suggest a what I call model archetype for how to be thinking about journeying to success. And I want to utilize the stadium for a portrait. And bear with me and follow where I go with this analogy. In every major city, certainly any major money center, there's a stadium. And I want to suggest for this portrait of archetype of transformation, the local professional basketball arena in your town if you're in a money center. So if you're in Atlanta where the Hawks play, if you're in Los Angeles where the Lakers and Clippers play, Dallas where the Mavericks play, you can figure it out. New Jersey, the Brooklyn Nets. You understand where I'm going. So wherever you are in the country, think about your local closest professional basketball team and the stadium that they play in, and kind of step through this with me. I'm talking about a proliferation, hear me out, a proliferation of alternative images of success until they are no longer viewed as alternative. Let me say it again. Proliferation, meaning the expansion, the broadcasting, the frequency, the proliferation of alternative images other than the traditional alternative images of success until they're no longer viewed as alternative. I'm going somewhere. When we ask young people what they want to be when they grow up, and I've heard this, Chris and Carlette, which is why I want to bring this to your forum. Particularly, some would suggest, I don't necessarily know that I agree with this, but I'm suggesting a commentary based on all the inputs I have and stimulus I have for multiple circles of our ecosystem. Some would suggest if you ask certain kids in certain communities what they want to be, they'll suggest something that has a stage, a ball, a microphone, some sort of performance and nature to it. Now, I have a whole nother narrative about that, but let me go down that road with you for a moment. And I'm here to say, in the Empowering Dreamers to Become Achievers, and there's the book. You guys told me I had the book. There it is. And I think you showed it earlier. So there's the book. But here's what I'm saying. Do you know, Chris and Carlette, round numbers? There are 3 sections in a stadium. And that stadium has 3 sections in it. I'm going to call section 1 the section of the stadium where the players sit. Round numbers, depending on the league rules, roughly 15 players, maybe fewer, but I'll call it 15 for today. 15 players on an NBA roster, meaning that there's roughly 30 seats in section 1 of the stadium. 15 guys on the home team, 15 on the visitor team. Same for women. This is gender neutral. 15 and 15 players that play the game on the court. And guess what? They're not making any more seats. Let me pause. That number is fixed. Do the math. However many teams there are in the league, multiplied by 15, that's how many seats there are to be on a team. That math is fixed. It's not changing. Section 2, call that courtside, right? Some would suggest where celebrities, people seen to be seen, all the people who sit on court sides. Again, this is pre-COVID, so remember what those stadiums used to look like, but they're courtside seats, right? And if we just do round numbers, I'm going to do it easy for you. Let's say there's 100, 100, 100, 100. That means there are 400, plus or minus, you understand where I'm going, 400 seats in section 2. Those are those courtside seats that sit right behind where the 30 people who are on the team are sitting. That's section 2. So recapping, there's 30 seats in section 1. There's roughly 400 seats in section 2. And then there's roughly 18,000 or so seats in general admission where the casual fan sits and enjoys the game. Section 3. Make the math easier for you. Let's just say there's 20,000 seats in section 3. Let's say there's 400 seats in section 2. There's 30 seats in section 1. Now, Chris and Carlette, some would suggest when we ask young people, well, what do you want to be? What section you want to be in? A lot of them say, I want to be in section 1. Mm-hmm. Be on the court, be on the stage. I'm going to be that guy, be that girl. I'm not here to discourage any dream. I'm in the empowerment dream business. But you know what else I'm in the business in? I'm also in the practical reality of having a plan B is a great way to make sure plan A doesn't become the only plan. And if it doesn't work out, you have no plan. So I'm all about plan A and plan B. But you notice what I purposely didn't do, Chris and Carlette, and guests at home? I left out a 4th section of the stadium. I talked about general admission. I talked about courtside, and I talked about on court.
People
Chris
outside.
And Carlette, guest, what section did I leave out?
People outside the stadium.
Section 4.
Nosebleed.
Oh.
No.
No, nosebleed.
Section 4.
Oh.
The suites.
Oh,
yeah. Okay, right.
Yeah.
The corporate luxury suites that are on the perimeter of every stadium we just talked about.
Yeah.
And round numbers, if there are 50 seats in 50 suites, that means there's 2,500 seats in the suites, meaning there's more in the suites than section 2 and in section 1. Why do I make this point very clear? When you watch a game, you know what section they never show you on television? They only show you section 1, section 2, and section 3. How many times is the cameraman panning section 4? Rarely, if ever.
Right.
What do our kids aspire to be? That which they see.
Wow.
They see section 1, they see section 2, and they see section 3.
Wow.
So why is it our fault to be mad at a young person who has no aspiration to be in section 4, Chris and Carlette, if they've never seen it before?
Wow.
What is our opportunity? I suggest young people, when they watch these games, watch section 4. Why? Here's what I'll tell you. You know, LeBron James has a beautiful big contract. Yes, he does. You know, Shaquille O'Neal, when he played, had a beautiful big contract. Yes, he did. Anthony Davis, big contract. Dame Lillard, I'm going around the country for you. All these guys, big contracts. Kevin Durant, huge contract. Let me ask you this. Where does the person who signs their check sit in the stadium? Section 4. The corporate executive, section 4. Here's what I'm suggesting. Part of empowerment in the 21st century for our young people is to allow them to recognize the 4th section of the stadium. It doesn't mean we tell them don't dream about being in section 1. It, however, helps them understand they can aspire to the 4th section. Guess what? The probability is much greater for them to get there. And I'll land here. There is a blueprint that is highly repeatable on the pathway to get there, but not if you don't know it exists, and not if you don't know what are the steps you need to take to get there. Why do I shoot 1,000 jump shots? Because I know that's what so-and-so did when they made it to the league. So guess what I do? Shoot 1,000 jump shots. Now, if you tell me it took 1,000 books to read, an MBA from Dartmouth, working on Wall Street, learning how to speak these multiple languages effectively, learning how to read well, write well, critically think well, build relationships with people who don't look like me well, travel to other countries, do all these things, then I would suggest to you that now I have a same blueprint as the one that had me shooting 1,000 jump shots when it was dark outside. Now I'm reading books because I know that was part of what it took for that person to get into section 4. Here's what I'm saying. Young people are brilliant. Young people are coachable. Young people have aspirations of significance. And I have talked about this archetype of the stadium with young people all across the country, young, old, rich, poor, black, white. The number of them who know about section 4 is few. Those who do aspire to it. Those who know about it are more likely to realize it. It's not suggesting anything wrong with the other 3 sections, but it is suggesting if you don't know it exists, how can you dream for it to become a reality? And part of what I think your platform is doing in its own way, for my humble opinion, is giving people virtual access to these other parts of the stadium. And when you do that, you're empowering them to transfer their reality now, and that is a controllable variable within the construct of some that are not controllable right now. Last point, and then I'll give it back to you. 3 vignettes. They told her she would never become somebody that the world would want to watch, listen, and take guidance from. They fired her from her first job because she was horrible, and they told her, go out and just cover traffic. Nobody wants to watch or pay attention to you. Her name is Oprah Winfrey. They told her that shortly in her first job, 23 years old, an affiliate, Baltimore, again, absorb, challenge, internalize, practice, apply, fact check it. She became who she became because she understood how to deal with adversity and challenge. Number 2, I think these are important to know. The original dream team, this person was cut from that dream team, didn't make the basketball team in high school, went home and cried about it, got such a resolve to just say, I'm going to outwork everybody and show them that they should have never bet against me. And the competitive fire that was born in me that everybody credits me for now, Michael Jordan will tell you it was because I got cut from the varsity basketball team when I was 15 years old at Laney High School in North Carolina that helped build the fire that fueled 6 championships. If I don't get cut as a sophomore, I may not create that fire that led to me becoming one of the best of all time. Last one, and I want to land on this one. This person got into Harvard Law School and didn't apply. This person got into Harvard Law School, which jump-started their eventual career of notoriety, and they didn't even apply.
Wow.
Why and how? Because they went to a summer program and they just did it with such excellence that when people were watching them and they didn't know they were watching, they were so impressed with this person, they said, we need this person at our institution. To this day, to the best of my knowledge, the only person ever admitted to Harvard Law School and never applying is Reginald Lewis, the first African-American to create a billion-dollar company in American history by creating a $985 million leveraged buyout of Beatrice Foods with a couple of his partners. A small African-American M&A firm beat the likes of the big major investment banks at that time. And he will tell you, he's passed obviously, but I'm giving you information to read up on, that part of his success story was doing what he did with such excellence and didn't know who was watching. And someone said, I see you, young man. I see you, young woman. I see what you're trying to do. I see that you're working hard within the controllable environment that you're in. I see you're hungry. I see you're a little bit raw, a little bit unpolished, but you clearly have something that we can teach you with, because you have that it factor. You've got that fire. You've got that grit. You've got that determination. And Reginald Lewis wasn't the smartest. Oprah Winfrey wasn't the first. Michael Jordan wasn't the first draft pick. Hear my heart, ladies and gentlemen. Success is predicated on how you manage adversity. And if you're listening to people who tell you how great they are without telling you how they endured hardship, stop listening to them. Listen to your role models, but dissect how they became. Don't just fixate on what they became. I need to say this again. Study your role models. And I love all the people I mentioned, but I love the fact that I know their how more than I know about what they do. Because if I know their how, I can emulate what they do. But if I know what they do and I don't know their how, I'll never be able to do what they did. And I think your platform, if I don't deposit anything else of value, I'm encouraging your guest, old, young, rich, poor, black, white, East Coast, West Coast. Let's be serious about the business of studying how people became who they became, managed and endured hardship and struggle, refused to give up despite the odds, brought people along while they were moving forward, and left a blueprint for people to do greater than them, even as great as they did, and honored their legacy, which goes back to centuries from before when they were rulers and creators of things that still stand to this day. That is who we are. And anybody that suggests a short-circuited narrative is robbing us of the most powerful thing that we have, a liberated mind to think critically about the realities and absorb, challenge, internalize, practice, and apply the template accurately. I believe it is one of the greatest gifts that we can give. And my hope is I've deposited a modicum or an ounce, a little bit of that for your guest today.
And the mic has just been dropped.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know it's way past the allotted time, but I just want to say thank you, Mr. Ray. Wow. Baby, you have any last words?
I think that we all can answer the question, where do we go from here? If you don't know where you go from here after hearing the past and the present, you missed it. But I will tell you what I know, just one thing. And that was to encourage, invite, and live a life of respectable integrity, righteous integrity. And that's how
Carlette,
people. Yes, sir.
Carlette, I want you, if you wouldn't mind, please repeat that again, powerfully, slowly, because I believe what you're saying is critically important. And I'm encouraging everyone. This is one of the leadership portraits. Don't spectate, participate, write this down, memorialize this testament of knowledge. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is wisdom. Knowledge changes things. So Carlette, I want to invite everyone to hear what you said again. And instead of just listening to it or saying, yeah, that's a good point, write this down, record this, take a sound bite. But please, Carlette, if you wouldn't mind repeating the sound bite you just shared so everyone is able to hear it, internalize it, and then they can apply it accurately. So Carlette, if you wouldn't mind, please, that sound bite one more time for the record.
And type it in the comments if you got to do that.
And please, yeah, I can't do that, but someone that can do that. Carlette, please give us that again.
Encourage, invite, and live a life of righteous integrity that others can follow, that they're watching you when you're not, when you know you're not being seen. They're watching your lifestyle to seeing what you say is how you actually live. Because like he said, anybody can hold the mic and preach a good thing and or say or, do a seminar. But who are you when there is no microphone, there is no camera? That's what people are watching. And that's how you bring them up. That's how you bring them to where you are. And then their life slowly becomes improved, better.
And what I picked up too, he said it earlier, is how you manage your valleys. That was powerful. How do you could be on top, but how do you manage your valleys when they come? That's all right. It's late, but we want to say thank you. I want everybody.
Wait, another one.
What's that?
Absorb it.
Yes.
Challenge it. Internalize it. Practice it. Apply it accurately.
There it is. ACIPA. ACIEAA. There it is.
Where can people go?
I'll give you this last one too, and then I know you're going to close us out. But I also say this one: a setback is a setup for a comeback if you get up. And I'm going to say it again because somebody needs to hear the last piece of that. A setback is a setup for a comeback if you get up. Last one. Quitting is a habit. It gets easier to do it the more that you do it. Resiliency is also a habit. It is easier to build it the more that you practice it. A setback is a setup for a comeback if you get up. The derivative says quitting is a habit. It's easier to do it the more that you do it. You quit on something small, it becomes easy to quit on something big. You never quit on something small, it becomes incredibly difficult to quit on something that is big. Wow. And I believe that if we can all, self-included, continue to work to master that sort of principle practice in life, we all stand to be better, and so too does our community.
Wow. If people wanted to order the book, they could.
Yes, the book Empowering Dreamers to Become Achievers is on Amazon. You can go there, and I know that they have an inventory there, and you can order it there certainly. And certainly if that doesn't happen, you reach out to me through my channels online. I'm fine. We'll make sure that that's not an obstacle, but they should be able to honor those requests. If it's a larger kind of a bulk order or something like that, then we may do it another way. But if you're looking for a couple copies, then I should be able to facilitate it. If you're looking for more of a bulk kind of experience, then come to us directly, and we'll certainly be able to facilitate that on the backside. Right. And Black History Month, I hope we all also appreciate just the wonderful opportunity this is but it's a month. It's not a year. And so hopefully we're also very cognizant of the rich contributions that we've made throughout history. And remember that history doesn't start in 1915 and Carter G. Woodson, or 1895 and W. Du Bois. It starts well before 1776, the transatlantic slave trade. I'm going back to the civilization and originators of things that have stood the test of time. And so I hope in the posture of Black History Month, we also bring our great ancestors, kings and queens, forward and make that a part of our history, because it certainly is a part of it. It doesn't start when the history book records. It starts actually when the world was created. And we need to bring those portraits and templates and those truths as a part of today's history to inform our logic and knowledge and understanding of where we are, where we're going, and most importantly, how did we get here?
Right. And if people wanted to get in contact with you, that's everything, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever.
Yes.
It's
the good news is I think my parents are watching, my mom and dad. I'm Ramsey J. Jr. My father is Ramsey J. Sr. and my mom is Florence J. So you go Ramsey J. Jr., you'll find me, and all of my kind of tags, identities, all that are Ramsey J. Jr. And that will be able to find me, and we'll be responsive as we can to your inquiries or requests. This is what I do. This is what I was born to do. And I'm at service to empower the masses with the gift that God has given me. So I'm here to labor with that, with as much life as he allows me to live.
Yes. And I think your mom must have commented.
She's on YouTube.
Yes, she's on YouTube.
Watching on YouTube. And then
I guess, if everybody likes to say hi, Mom, I guess I can say it because she's watching me. So I'll say hi, Mom. I can't see her, but I'm glad she's on. And my dad probably is either there with her or in another room on another device, but he's probably on board as well. And all my family, I know a lot of my family is on in the state of Georgia. I want to say hello and thank you for them for tuning in, and some of my relatives in other parts of the country. We're in the Midwest in Indiana and Wisconsin. Some of my cousins may be on there. One of my cousins had a baby recently, so I don't know if she's on, but I'm aware that I'm very well supported, and I want to say thank you to all of the family that I've been able to extend to your virtual platform and be with you today, and allowing them to be part of the Chris and Carlette live experience. And I just want to again deposit into you guys, keep doing what you're doing. This labor is one of love. And I'd like to say this, you have to stop me because I can go on and on, but one of the great things I took from China, and I say this all the time, it's always false. Whenever a preacher says, I'm going to be brief, that joker's not going to be brief, right? When that joker says, I'm getting ready to close, he's not getting ready to close. But I'm going to really go on this one. One of the great things that happened to me when I went to the Tuck School of Business, I had an opportunity to go to China for the first time. And as part of a capstone class, I took a course called Doing Business in Asia. One of the professors had been in the Reagan administration and had access and was able to take a handful of us over. Long story short, went to the Great Wall of China, and I'll land here on it. The Great Wall of China is one of the great wonders of the world. It's actually longer, hear me out here, Chris and Carlette show, longer than the width of the United States. So if you flew from LA to Atlanta, the Great Wall would actually follow you. That's how long it is. Mm-hmm. This is, again, fact check me on this stuff, absorb, challenge, all that. But it's that long. Built in the Ming Dynasty, which may not mean anything to you, but the Ming Dynasty basically suggests it was built thousands of years ago, which means it was built without modern technology, cranes, equipment, computers that you think you would need to build the home, the apartment that you're listening to me in right now. So it was built back then. I walked all the way up that Great Wall of China, and the steps are concave, meaning they have kind of a hollow U-like feel to them. And you say, why? Because of the thousands of people that had walked up and down. You know how many steps that must mean? Walked up and down for it to be hollowed out like that? This is a true story. When you walk it, you'll be walking through the steps of thousands of people over hundreds of years. True story. Chris and Carlette and guest, and I'm saying this to you, Chris and Carlette, as a deposit in faith, but also for everyone else that needs to hear something like this. Here's the facts. I asked a great ancient souvenir wise man who was selling paraphernalia about halfway up the Great Wall, looked like he had been there for a long time. So I said, sir, please tell me, how did the individuals who built this Great Wall manage to build it without any of the equipment that I would think you would need to build the apartment, the home that I live in? They built this without any of that, and it still stands to this day. And I'm saying this to Chris and Carlette and everyone else as I sign off. he said three things. He said, number one, the people who laid the first brick of the brick wall knew they would not live long enough to see it complete. I need to repeat that for somebody. It took more than a generation to build the wall, which means Chris and Carlette audience, it means the first Great Wall of China bricklayers knew they would not reap the benefit of the wall being built because they would expire before it was complete. So they built it with complete selflessness for those coming after them. They never had a selfish motive of what's in it for me when they laid their brick. Point number one. I believe, Chris and Carlette, you are laying bricks. Be encouraged. Even if you may not see it fully manifest to what it will become in your time, without your brick, it won't become something that stands the test of time. Point number two. He then said that they laid those first bricks with such precision, meaning they weren't intimidated about trying to build this great wall and how quick we have to do it and we got to hurry up. They said, no. We're going to lay each of these bricks as perfectly as possible. Why? Because the foundation of the base of the wall is what will allow the wall to stand trial and tribulation over time. But if you build it on a faulty foundation, then by definition, everything that you build on top of that will be susceptible to the weak base, and it will crumple amongst the first sign of trial or tribulation. And then I added the third piece on there. So one, the first bricklayers had a selfless motive, knowing they wouldn't see the full benefit of it. Two, they laid it with such precision that the foundation was so strong that it would be able to stand the test of time. Point three, my point that I add on to it, they made sure, hear me out, they made sure they laid that first brick knowing they wouldn't see the benefit. They laid it with foundational excellence, knowing that the foundation would stand trial and tribulation. And then thirdly, Carlette and Chris, this brings it all home. They did it in such a way that the generation that came after them was so inspired to honor their legacy, they didn't dare defoul it. You want to inspire young people to keep your contributions alive? You can't do it unless you do it with foundational excellence and selfless intent. But if I come after you, Chris and Carlette, to your show or your platform, whoever inherits your stage next, people at home, whoever works at the job next, whatever business you start that you hand down to your kids, whatever you're handing down to someone coming after you, the only way you can ensure that they do right by what you've done is you have to do what you did in such a way that it was selfless and it was such precision and foundational excellence that I can't conjure up a mindset to do wrong because of how much you did right. And I land on this for all my family listening, my grandparents. That is the foundational excellence we need to pull forward. I call them our quintessential motivators. Grandmother on my mom's side, grandmother on my father's side, grandmother on my dad's side passed last year, grandmother on my mom's side almost about 10 years ago now. And the foundational excellence suggests to me, shame on me, Ramsey J. Jr., for not doing everything in my power to honor those who laid the bricks that I now get to cross over the wall for. I do not believe I have the right to not do right by those who laid that first brick that now I stand on and cross over. Ladies and gentlemen, hear my heart. Somebody laid a brick for you. Somebody laid more than a brick for you, probably. It is your and my responsibility to do right by the original bricklayers in our life. And that pursuit, by definition, inspires the one who walks after you to do the same. And I believe, Chris and Carlette, for what it's worth, you're laying your brick with this platform. And I believe my opportunity is to encourage you, whether there's 1,000 people listening, 10,000 people listening, or one person listening, you too keep laying your brick. And don't worry about how many people are watching you. Don't worry about that. You do it with foundational excellence and integrity. And in due time, the wall will not just stand, it will stand the test of time. Be encouraged. Be encouraged to control what you can and do what you can with foundational intelligence and excellence, so everything that comes after you won't wither when trial and tribulation comes, which we know it will.
Wow. I see tears in your eyes. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're definitely going to have you back on the show.
Happy to be of service. And Carlette, I know your heart. Chris, I know your heart. Stay the course. Stay the course. Stay the course. This is what we need, and this is the time that we need it. If it was easy, everyone would do it. You have been chosen. Do what you have been chosen to do.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Man,
it is my honor.
I don't know how to end it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes.
And I'll land here. I'll tell somebody else for you, because you may not do it. You understand it. You should, if you're listening, you are here because somebody told you, somebody reached out to you. Maybe you got the post. You have a responsibility. Not because Ramsey J's on the show, but if something on here is enriching to someone who wasn't on here, you do have a responsibility to be the portal to transfer the information. So you should share it. You should tell someone about it, forward them the link, not because Ramsey J was on the show, not because Chris and Carlette, because that's the human condition. That's the human experience. So you're here because somebody reached out to you somehow, someone told you about it. And if you heard one thing that enriched your life, then I believe your bricklaying responsibility is you need to share it with at least one other person who won't get it unless it's through you.
Wow.
And I'm going to take my charge seriously and forward this to 10 people that need to hear it. And if you did that, the ripple effect of change becomes quite powerful. It all starts with one. So if you're so inclined to really, well, what can I do? I'm inspired. I'm fired up. I want to do something. Here's what you can do to start. Share what you heard, share what you learned with someone who won't get me live because I'm leaving now. But this transference of knowledge can't stop when the screen goes dark. It should just be the stimulus. Now you pass it on. And let's be part of that ripple effect of change. And that is how we transform society, community, and people today. This is not a tomorrow equation, not a tomorrow proposition. This is a right now campaign. And we can do this with all the externalities, politics, presidents, White House, Wall Street. I get it. I'm knowledgeable. They can't stop you from sharing it with someone else. That's something we can do, and we should do that. And I'm encouraging you to join us, share with someone that needs to be enriched, encouraged, and empowered because of something you heard. You now share it with someone else. And that's how I would ask you to allow that to be my fun. Don't make it about me. Don't make it about Chris and Carlette. Make it about you sharing knowledge, wisdom, power, and empowerment with someone else. That is the best way to say thank you if you've been enriched today. Share it with someone else.
Wow. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you. You enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. You do the same.
We just pray God's blessing and favor on your life.
Continue.
I received
so that
that.
you
Thank
can
you.
continue to do what you do and to share. And oh boy, thank you.
And call if you want me again. You call me. I mean,
Okay.
I'm. This is what I do.
Yes, sir.
This is my service.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
the Bible, biblical principles teach that service is the price you pay for the space you occupy, the gift you've been given. And I want to pay my debt in full for the gift that God's given me, which means I'll serve until He calls me to the higher lane.
Right. Wow.
Well, we're gonna call you.
Yes.
Not, and we're not gonna abuse that. We're gonna call you.
Yep.
And
Please do.
not just to be on this show. We're gonna call you.
Please do.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, thank you so much.
Good night.
All right. Good
Be
night.
well. And I have a feeling we'll be seeing each other again soon enough.
Yes,
We
sir.
will.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank
you.
Wow.
Oh boy.
Wow. I need for everybody who's still viewing to stay on. That was powerful. If you have some questions or comments,
It's just comments at this point.
Yeah, just comments
It's-
at this point. Just
yeah.
call or just
Send
there's a number if you want to just
Put
call
some in the
for
comment section.
our guests. If you would like to help sponsor or to help with financially to our efforts here, please you can cash app. I'm just lost for it. Dollar
CNC
signs.
Live.
Yes. But this was awesome. This was really
This was a good kickoff to Black History Month.
yes.
For us. And the thing that came to me was we are a part of Black History. Chris and Carlette Live.
Yeah.
That started January 4th, 2021 in the midst of a pandemic by the grace of God. Yep.
Yes.
And we've had people to come on every week. Our faithful supporters, my mother, your sister, my dad, our family, our friends. We see you on YouTube. We see you on Facebook. Our producer.
Yes.
I mean, just faithful. And this was such an honor. It was encouraging. It was encouraging. The tears was just tears of joy. Just like, wow. Thank you to Mr. Ramsey J. Jr., Miss Florence and Mr. Ramsey J. Sr. Thank you for your son and how you raised him and what you put in him.
Yes. And to all his family that is viewing, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, I saw somebody on here by the name of Jesse Barrett. They said, "Love you, Rams," from Jesse L. Barrett and Ramona Barrett. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, we just we thank you, and please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube, and do both. Share, and subscribe to YouTube and to our Facebook page. We have I just got to go there, but we have a great show next week as well.
Mm-hmm.
We have a great show. It's just I want everybody streaming. Stay. But we have a great show, and so this is what here. This is yours, baby. Yeah. So I got a piece of cornbread, but we have some. Ooh, they say leftovers is great. It's better than. We had our Life Church. Shout out to Dr. Terrence Merritt,
our pastor.
Our pastor. We had a dinner last night that he provided all the volunteer workers with, and my wife was able to cater for that. And thank you to Michelle Ellis and Mrs. Holman.
Yes.
Thank you for your
Monica
hard work.
Holman. Yes.
However, so we had some leftovers, right? So I warmed it up. It's probably cold now, but my wife just cooks so eloquently. It's some sweet potatoes here. Let me just take a bite.
I'm sorry, I don't have an appetite after what I just heard.
I know. But
I just
here. Wait. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Then she has some string beans right here. Let me just taste it for you. Y'all can.
Okay.
And then some smothered. Wait, just one smothered piece of smothered chicken. My wife cooked this. You gotta. So.
You know
This
they can
is-
hear all that.
I know that's just how flavorful it is.
Thank you.
However, next week is an awesome show. I'm excited about that one too. We will be, because of Valentine's Day is coming up. This is so good. My wife and I will be cooking in the kitchen for our show. Right?
That's right.
Make sure you tune in for that one as well. We will be cooking in the kitchen, and so, she.
Don't eat nothing else.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I can hear that. But and this is a piece of pound cake. Lemon pound cake from
with a raspberry dressing.
With a raspberry dressing. It has February drizzle. It has February 8th on that. I tried to write it. And then my wife's piece has CSC Live written. But
oh my God.
Join us February 8th for our cooking show, because we want to show how to make to do something special for your loved one for Valentine's Day. You can cook in the kitchen, just make up a little basic meal. So that should be exciting. We're going to be in the kitchen. We're going to have a whole production crew over here to help us with this. And man, this is good. Let me,
Chris.
Wait. Okay, wait. I have to do this. I have to do this. Pastor Javon.
Thank you, Terrell.
Pastor Javon Blakely. Pastor J, if anybody can tag Pastor J.
You got a piece of green bean on your cake.
That's all right. It's going down the same place. But text Pastor J and tell him to watch the end of the stream too.
Just wrong.
That pound cake is just awesome.
Naya said, Uncle Chris, you are funny.
Make sure you tag your daddy.
Right.
And tell him, wait, just one more. Just bear with me just one more time. That's for Uncle Jay. Yes. But join us next week. We will be having a cooking show. I don't even know if I don't think
Michelle said you are wrong for this.
So I know if let's see here. Hold on.
Baby, it's after 9
I know. I'm so sorry. If Chris Macklin
McCracken.
McCracken, I'm sorry. If he's watching, let him know I'm eating his leftovers for him. So join us next week. We'll be doing the cooking show. The following week, we will have the producer of the Bible Experience. That's the audio portion of the Bible being read by African American actors, entertainers, and so forth. He will be on along with
Denise Williams.
Your cousin, Denise Williams. She will be on as well because she played a part in that. And she has a new single out. So we want to make sure, I didn't switch that. We want to make sure that, no, I had to switch the camera so they can see your pretty face. We want to make sure that we get her single as well, Denise Williams. And then the following, the last Friday of the month, we will have none other than Dr.
Yes.
Dr.
Dwight Owens.
Dwight Owens.
Yes.
And you think you want to laugh? You're going to laugh.
But mental health.
Yes.
This is, not only is this Black History Month, but Love Month, and we're going to be talking about self-love, mental health.
Yes.
Okay, we're wrapping this up. Thank you all that stayed on, listened, watched, supported, watched me cry, watched Chris fight tears. I saw tears in his eyes. I saw him. He just let them sit right there. Well, mine's no. They just run down my face and stuff.
This
Y'all
is for
saw
Terrell.
me doing all this and all that. But thank you all.
Thank you.
We love you all. Until next time, hey, like you heard what he said. He says so much, but everything you hear, absorb it, challenge it, internalize it, practice it, apply it accurately, and encourage, invite, and live your life with righteous integrity, and they will follow. They won't be left behind.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Say your prayer. Say your prayers.
Now I'll let me.
No.
Okay,
Stop.
I'm sorry.
Thanks for joining us this week on Chris and Carlette Live. Make sure to visit our website, chrisandcarlette.com. If you're on Facebook, share this broadcast. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to our show. You may also find us on Apple Podcast, where you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. Let us stay in contact with you by texting CNC Live to 474747. That's CNC Live to 474747.
CNC Live.